Welcome back to the Cart Barn. This week, we've got an exciting guest for you. We'll get into that in just a minute, but just thought we'd kind of cover a few things. The AGA, Alabama Golf Association, has announced their Players of the Year this week. Got the West Coast going on, the American Express, which was won last year by future guest on the podcast, Nick Dunlap. I love this time of year and the West Coast swing. And one more thing is Gary Christian, who we had on just a few weeks ago. He's broadcasting for the PGA Tour Live this week out there. Greg, what you got going on?
Headed to the PGA Merchandise Show, which is a massive show. If you've never been, it's a little overwhelming the first time you walk in there at the Orange County Convention Center down in Orlando. Massive show. All the major manufacturers kind of unveil their new equipment for the year. Everybody's got the showing their apparel lines. Anything you want in the world of golf, you can find at the merchandise show, and it's not for the public, but a lot of people seem to find their way into it who have nothing to do with the golf industry. So it's a massive amount of people. It's a good chance to really test out some equipment if you're into that kind of thing. There'll be some folks from the north come down. They have a big demo day on Tuesday, and guys will sit up there, probably haven't hit a ball in 3 months. They'll get up there and hit 300 balls with the new equipment. And if you're waiting to hit 25 balls just to see if you like a driver or some irons, sometimes you wait in a long line. But it's a fun event. I'll be talking to a few people. This year I've got booked Gentile Apparel. They're out of Oxford, Mississippi. They're good people. I always talk to them. They've got a nice line of clothing. I'll be talking to a golf course photographer, Mike Clemmy, and working on booking a couple other things for it. So it's going to be a fun time. I always go down there. We play a little golf.
Yeah.
Which is not going to be played or is not being played in North Alabama at this point.
No. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this week of this episode is going to be bitter cold. So no golf here.
It's not going to be real good down there, but it's going to be better than here. But it's, is what it is this time of year. A lot of, last week, the RTJ everybody was closed last week. I did get out to the RTJ at the Shoals last Thursday.
How'd that go?
It was this windy and cool. Then first round of the year, I hadn't played since late December, so it was okay. But you had a good time down in Florida.
Yeah, I did. Good friend of mine is a member at Tallis Park, and went down and played in his member guest. Ran into Fuzzy Zeller. He's a member there, lives on the golf course as well, and golf course in really phenomenal shape. It's originally a Greg Norman Pete Dye designed golf course. Greg Norman just recently redid the golf course. It reopened last year. Really good. And the team won, the member guest, so that was fun. It was good to get out and play, and the weather wasn't too bad. It was a little cool at times, but there were people wearing shorts. I just didn't do it.
When we go to Florida this time of year, we want it to be in the 70s and 80s when it's 25, 30 here. And, even though 50s and low 60s is still good, it's not what you really wanted down there. But one interesting, you mentioned Fuzzy Zeller. He's a guy that has really kind of escaped from the public eye in the last, 10 years or so. You don't hear much from him anymore.
Yeah, his wife passed away not too long ago, but he seemed to be doing fine, looked good. He has a line of vodka, Fuzzy's Vodka, and actually when I saw him, he was the golf course has this outside bar area, and he was standing there at the bar mixing up drinks and shooting a commercial. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, we don't see him too much up here anymore.
No.
So, but he was
really nice guy though.
Yeah, super guy. So you want to dive into this week's?
Yeah, let's get in. This week, we're going to do someone that I've known a long time, and a good friend and a good teaching pro, Stephen Puryear from Decatur. He works notably with Lee Hodges, and recently he picked up Chad Ramey. But it was a really good interview with Stephen, and I think everyone's going to enjoy this week's episode, hearing him talk a little bit about working with PGA Tour players and some of his philosophies. So let's get into this week's episode with Stephen Puryear. Welcome back to the Cart Barn. Today we are joined by Stephen Puryear. Stephen, welcome to the Cart Barn.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
How
Glad
you
to
doing,
have
Stephen?
Hello.
I'm just going to jump right in here, Stephen. Obviously you've kind of carved out your niche as one of the better teachers in Alabama and in the Southeast region. Kind of just give us a little bit of your background. How'd you get involved in golf, and how did you get involved in teaching?
Well, I kind of fell into the teaching part just because I like juniors so much. I was an old club pro, went to Mississippi State, did the golf management deal, and always loved the kids, and always had a good junior program. And as Lee Hodges worked his way through the ranks of junior golf, college golf, mini tour golf, Corn Ferry golf, and now the PGA Tour. I've been fortunate enough to be with him, and in doing so, I picked up a few other clients and have worked with a lot of good players, and it's been a very interesting ride, in that my business model and my life has changed tremendously because of his success. I'm not that old club pro anymore, but I still got a lot of club pro in me. I enjoy that. I just don't get to do it as much now that I'm on the road with him.
I'm sure you hate not having the merchandise and all that stuff that a club pro does.
Yeah, I learned the hard way. I wasn't very good at that. I thought I was, but my checkbook showed me that I wasn't. So I was glad to get out of that part of it.
Yeah. Well, who were some early influencers for you getting into the golf business and taking that route?
Other than my dad, my club pro his name was Fletcher White. He was in Southeast Arkansas, and he's who I took golf lessons from, and he had a huge influence on the decisions that I made. I wanted to get in the golf business because of him. Fletcher's retired in Arkansas now, but Brett Krause is who I went to work for straight out of college, and BK was really good to me. He taught me that I needed mentors. So one of my mentors was Randy Smith. Randy Scotty's Scheffler's coach, so I spent a lot of time with Randy and trying to learn from him. And then Mike Adams down at PGA National at the time. He's in Jupiter now, and then I think in Connecticut during the summer. But just people like that, and then and lately over the last 15 years, it's been Jim Hardy and Chris O'Connell. I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time with Mr. Hardy and Chris and Matt Kuchar, and have tried to just learn everything I can from them. And that's still an ongoing process. Jim and Chris and Matt have been really good to me, and I still get to spend a lot of time with them.
If you could, backing up a little bit to your time at Mississippi State in the PGA program, there's a lot of young kids coming up through the high school ranks who are interested in those types of programs. How did it benefit you from your overall experience and in the teaching aspect as well?
Well, it just gives you the leg up and the opportunity with experience, first of all, because you get to do the internships and go to some wonderful places. My first job was Grand Cypress in Orlando. I didn't know what I was getting into. It was cart barn, bag drop, club cleaning, and I lived off tips for dinner that night, and then would spend all that money and go to work the next day. And it gave me some experience that I probably wouldn't have gotten if I would just been a college kid and not in the program. And then from there, that gave me the opportunity to go to other clubs and actually get experience behind the counter and running golf tournaments and merchandising and doing a little bit of dabbling with some junior golf at the time. But, if it hadn't been for Mississippi State, I wouldn't have had those doors to that open for me there. So it's a great way to get that experience.
Are those programs hard to get into?
Not really. There's a lot of them now. I kind of have mixed emotions as a club pro now, because there seems to be a lot more PGM students coming out than there are jobs. So just if you think you're going to get rich being a golf professional, chances are you're not going to. There's a club that you want to get in, that high end, the nicer club, and it's a click for sure. And if you can get in that click from the beginning, then you've got an opportunity to stay in it in your career. But if you don't get it in the beginning, it's real hard to get in that, because they kind of hire from within that clique.
Interesting. So when did you kind of take a liking towards the teaching end of it?
Gosh, I don't know. I guess my dad had a huge influence. He was that guy who was the businessman that was the high school golf coach that would drive everybody to the tournaments and organize it. And selfishly, I think he did it for me because he was trying to organize a golf team. And, but after I left and was working, people would call me and go, "Yeah, I've been working with your dad doing stuff. He had a clinic, or he took kids to the tournaments and was still coaching high school golf after I was long gone." So he loved helping the kids, and everybody wants to make their dad happy. So I think that was my main influence, was my father, and then Fletcher, of course, had a great junior program. But I've always gotten along with the kids. It was just in me. I miss it a lot, but I appreciate, it's all about relationships, and it's hard to have a relationship when you're gone 3 or 4 weeks out of the month. So I don't do it as much as I used to. Still have a few that I work with, but not as many.
Well, going back to what year did you, or what age was Lee when you first started working with him?
Lee was 10. I think we went back. We did a presentation for Mr. Hardy. He has a group called Plain Truth Golf, and it's a group of instructors that he trains. And Lee and I went back and did a presentation from them, and I had video from 10 years old till that 3M win, which was kind of cool.
That's cool.
We went through all my video. I've got several computers that's got Lee, with all my video and my TrackMan information. I still keep that in a library. And the best we can figure, it was 10 years old. So he was baseball, basketball, a bunch of other sports, and then slowly ended up just being golf.
Did you see anything at that early age that indicated to you that he was going to have the success that he's had?
No, he was awful. And he'll admit it. I wish I could show you a video, but I do. I'll have a kid that's really good and struggling a little bit, and I'll pull up a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old Lee Hodges video, and this is Lee Hodges compared to you, and they're better. But Lee really turned the corner as a junior, senior in high school. He started to get a lot better, and we called him a late bloomer, and all of a sudden he got to UAB and just started beating everybody. That was he probably would have gone to Alabama if he would have had that one extra year. He would have probably won everything his senior year. But, unfortunately, we didn't have that. But I think it was good for him to go to UAB and have the success that he had.
How have you seen his swing evolve since the time he kind of started excelling to now?
That's a great question. In college, he was a low ball, straight ball hitter, which was great in the wind, which in college golf, you end up playing in a lot of tournaments where it's so windy and cold, and, the weather's no good. You're playing 36 holes in one day a lot of times. So he would keep it in play. He would hit it really low and have a lot of opportunities around the green to make birdie. As we developed and we went through Corn Ferry, all of a sudden we started needing the ball to get higher because the courses we were playing were harder, they were longer, and the greens were a lot firmer. So we needed to get the ball in the air. So we started working on hitting it a lot higher and picking up a little bit of distance. The distance part has been interesting. We keep getting a little bit longer and a little bit longer as he gets stronger and more efficient. But it was definitely during the UAB, to answer your question, as he was going to UAB, that's when he got a lot.
So would you say that it was mostly physical attributes that improved, or did his mental side get better too?
I think Coach Murray at UAB was a big influence on some of that. It gave him a lot of confidence, especially around the green. He picked up some short game stuff. Coach Murray was really good at that, and he would challenge him. He was a player's coach that really Lee responds to coaching. He's very coachable. He loves to get coached, and Coach Murray and him got along really well that way. So I think that having that other influence in his ear, other than me and his dad, was really big for him. It pushed him to another level. And that's the thing about Lee Hodges. I don't care what environment he's in, he's always managed to figure out a way to get to the top of whatever he was in, that certain pool. And, right now with Lee, last year he was a little bit disappointed in his performance, but we moved to another level. We with all this new PGA Tour stuff, we're playing in smaller fields and the players are better. And you've kind of got to figure that out. Every tournament felt like a major this year because of that smaller field. So, just give him a minute and he'll be right there back where he was the year before last as far as success goes.
And why don't you just kind of take us through a day in your life, whether it's at your facility or if you're out on the road working with some of your clients or working with Lee?
I opened a business down at Santa Rosa Beach with my son. It's a simulator club. So I've spent a lot of time down there this year trying to get it open. It's 3-bay TrackMan unit facility. And my wife and I have been very happy kind of part-timing down there and getting that going. So I don't spend as much time at Canebrake as I used to. I'd come back and actually, get 5 or 6 lessons a day. And I've kind of getting out of that a little bit. So when I'm not on the road, I'm down there trying to get that facility going and actually playing golf, which is nice. It's when you're traveling so much and I'm not carrying my clubs with me when I'm traveling. So I don't get to play golf as much as I used to. And I really miss that. But as far as the PGA Tour travel, typically I'll get in there on a Monday. And yeah, when Lee was a rookie, we'd never seen any of the golf courses. So we'd play a practice round on Monday. And then we'd play 9 holes Monday, 9 holes Tuesday, and then have the Pro-Am on Wednesday if he was in the Pro-Am. So we would do a little bit of work, just for a range session for an hour or so, and then go out and play 9 holes, and then a little 30-minute range session when we were done, and wake up the next morning and do that again for 3 days. And then we've kind of adjusted it now that he's seen these golf courses, so that we're traveling on Monday and we're just doing practice round on Tuesday and Wednesday. If it's a major, we'll be there on Monday. But typically for a regular event that we've seen already, it's Tuesday, Wednesday. And then I'll stick around on Thursdays now, watch him play, have a session after he gets done, and then head back on Thursday night or Friday. And then hopefully have a week. I try to schedule it. If I know he's going to be home, I try to schedule it so I'm home too. And then, while he's home, we'll go out and work for 2 or 3 hours. And usually when he's home, all I'm doing is we'll have a range session and we'll go out on the golf course and hit shots. And it's nothing. Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's just time, and talking a lot, figuring out what was good the week before and what was bad, and then addressing whatever was bad and trying to do the good stuff over again so that we get that the next week.
Being a golf guy, got to drive you crazy to be at a place like Riviera or someplace watching and working with him and not getting to go out and play.
Greg, the thing is, though, is when I look at a shot, I'm going, God, I'm glad I'm not hitting that shot. So yeah, kind of. But, it's fun to watch those guys hit those shots when, they're 205 hitting a 7-iron. What in the world? That'd be a good hybrid for me. And, let's hope we keep it on the golf course. And, they get it up there to 15 feet and ho-hum it like it's no big deal. But, yeah.
You can move up to the front tees.
Yeah, well, I've done that. Yeah, that's definitely. Definitely. If I keep on, I'm going to have to do the fairway cut like U.S. kids golf now.
Oh, gosh. Well, so who are some of the other guys that you're working with now?
I work with Chad. I have a contract with Chad Ramey. Chad's from Mississippi, so he and I get along really well. I picked up Chad in February, and gosh, I've had other guys before. I worked with Dominic Bizzelli when I was working with Lee, and I worked with Robbie Shelton when I was working with Lee. And you know, I don't work with them anymore. And that's kind of like the PGA Tour instructor scene is kind of like middle school. They kind of date around and see, and if one of them's having a little success, then they'll jump. So it's kind of interesting. My prospective clients have turned into a bunch of PGA Tour players. So as I get success with Lee or Chad, all of a sudden I get more interest. And the hard part about that's just managing time. It's
Yeah.
2 of them or 3 of them is really hard to manage out there. Scott Hamilton and some of those guys, they'll have 8 or 9 of them. They're out there giving golf lessons to tour players like I'm giving golf lessons to my members. So I don't know how. I don't know. Mine's more about time and relationships, and the more people you have, the less time you have. So, but right now it's Chad and Lee. And Chad's done really well. I've been really proud of him. He was kind of on the borderline, that top, he was outside 125. Now he's sitting at 110, 112. And he's had some success. It's just not consistent yet.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you guys have worked on to kind of help him start trending back in the right direction?
Chad had a lot of club face rotation through the ball, which means it was really open coming into the ball and then slamming shut. So one of the things that I really feel like that I'm good at is stabilizing the club face. And if you can imagine a race car going around a racetrack, I want the headlights of that race car staying on the track. Well, Chad's headlights they would be to the right, to the right, to the right, and then at the ball they would get square, and then to the left, to the left, to the left. And he had very little time where the club was actually square to the path that it was traveling on. So he was hitting it relatively short and relatively crooked. And the ability to have him find the face better, more consistently, he was such a great short game because of his bad iron play before. Now he's got a good short game with a pretty good iron game, and he's having some success.
And
so we stabilized the club face.
Yeah, and for the guys that are listening and don't know, we're talking about a guy that has won on the PGA Tour.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he won Punta Cana 3 years ago. And incredible short game.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible short game. But his ball striking is getting better, and that's freed him up to play some golf. So he's been a lot of fun to work with.
How does the process work when you approach somebody approaches you to work with? Do you have is it an interview process that you go through, talking about your philosophies and what the players' philosophies are with the golf swing?
Yeah, usually it's a phone call or a text. Hey, can you give me a look? I'm interested in making a change. Not happy with what I'm doing. Blah blah blah. I'd like to talk to you. And that usually turns into a visit here to Decatur. And it's nice having Huntsville Airport so close because they can just fly in. I can bring them in my studio here in Decatur, and I'll shoot some video. And then I've got Swing Catalyst and TrackMan. Swing Catalyst gives me an idea what they're doing with their body. TrackMan gives me an idea what the club and the ball are doing. And then, of course, video gives me an idea of what it looks like. So we'll shoot some video, and then we typically sit down and look at it and go, hey, this is what I think we need to do. Let's get after it. And sometimes it's received well, and sometimes they're like, I'm not sure I want to do that. Sometimes I'll say, I'm not sure I'm your guy. Some guys, either personality or there's some skeletons in the closet that they've been doing before, and they don't really jive with what I want to do. We don't match up very well. So it's give and take both ways.
It seems that when guys get to that level, the nuances are so slight that you have to jive personality wise, right?
That's correct. Got to be a lot of trust, a whole lot of trust in communication. it's tough when there's a bad round and you gotta text them and say, hey, what was going on with that? What did it feel like? Let's talk. And it's crickets. And I'm a golfer. I get it. I don't want to talk about it, but sometimes we need to. And in order for me to do my job, I've got to talk to them and communicate with them. And sometimes after a bad round, they shut down. So, part of that's knowing when to make that phone call or when to send that text. And then part of it is sometimes you send it at the wrong time, and you don't get anything back. But there's a lot of communication there. And that's the ones that I like working with, are the ones I can talk to about it. It's hard if they don't want to talk about it. And tour players, they've had success, and for them to change something is a big deal. They don't want to change. They really want to go out there and do it like they've been doing it, and not have to make any kind of serious change. So to convince them that they're going to hit the next ball better doing it like I'm talking about is sometimes a sales job. So we've got to be on the same page.
Yeah. Well, I've had the privilege of being in your facility, and I'll say this. I've seen a lot, and there are probably some that maybe are a little better, but there's not many. That's a really nice facility, Stephen.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You should see the one at the beach. The one at the beach.
Well, I'm planning on doing that.
Yeah, we took the one down. We took this model and turned it into 3 bays, and it's really nice. It's really nice.
And when you're working with anybody, be it a tour pro or Joe Blow, hey, I'm going to pay Stephen Puryear to, his going rate to give me an hour lesson. What's the first thing you kind of look for when they're swinging the golf club?
Their release. And I think as an instructor, we get so caught up in little stuff, and that's typically what a lot of guys will see is the little stuff. And the little stuff, and you'll think this is contrary to what everybody else says. The little stuff is setup, grip, alignment, all that. And I'm like, well, that's fundamentals. That's big stuff. But those are related to the big stuff. They're setting up a certain way. They're gripping it a certain way. They're doing things a certain way because of the way they want to deliver the club to the ball. So how they deliver the club to the ball, a lot of people don't even consider. Well, that's the number one thing I consider. So how is it delivered to the ball? Well, is the club rotating like Chad Ramey's was? Is the club very stable? Let's say Dustin Johnson. He's super closed at the top, comes in and cuts it. I mean, he's the opposite of what Chad Ramey was doing. So there's going to be a lot of opposites in the way they stand, the way they grip it, the way they set up to it, and then all the way up to the top and then back down to the bottom. But it's all related to release, that delivery for a right-handed golfer, from waist high to the ball. How do they do that? And, that you start changing that, all of a sudden you start seeing a lot of the fundamentals clean up. They start getting where, that looks a lot better. How'd you fix that? Well, he fixed it. I didn't. I told him how to deliver the ball, or deliver the club to the ball, and all of a sudden all that other stuff started cleaning up.
Mm. That makes sense. Do you tailor or change the way that you work on that with different skill levels? So I guess you talked about communication, and I assume that the vernacular that you use with a tour player is going to be a little different than a guy that's a 10 handicapper maybe.
Yeah. When my daughter was playing high school golf 10 years ago, I volunteered to help coach the high school golf team. And we got several girls, and they were kind of just starting, and they were, oh gosh, we're going to have this great teacher that's going to be helping us. And then the only thing I did was tell them to cut grass. Just come on, I want you to take the club and cut grass. And if they topped it, well, obviously they didn't cut grass. If they stuck the club in the ground, well, they dug grass. They didn't cut grass. So, I'm just out there saying, come on, girls, cut grass, cut grass, cut grass. And yeah, for a beginner, that's pretty basic. The last thing I'm going to do is put a beginner on here in TrackMan and video and just overwhelm them with all this information. So there's a huge difference there. But I'm still really looking at the way they deliver it. I'm trying to convince them of how to deliver the club properly through impact. And then some of that, it gets a lot easier. But yes, those 10 handicappers, those are kind of borderliner. I can get a little technical. Sometimes they're too technical, but being in North Alabama, working with all these engineers, you better have if you're going to talk numbers and be technical, you better be right, because they know, they're used to communicating that way.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then some of those 10 handicaps, 6 handicaps, 5 handicaps, they really like the technical part. They're more into the technical part than the output. They're more worried about how to do it than what's actually being, what the results are. They're wanting to look at TrackMan and see, gosh, look at that smash factor. All of a sudden, the smash factor's getting better. They like that. All of a sudden, the club path is getting better. So it just depends on who I'm working with, for sure.
But they're still shooting 87, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Some of my friends who just play for the enjoyment and aren't all technical, they'll say, well, I need new clubs. I'm like, well, don't spend $2,000 on a set of irons. Spend $700 on a set of used irons. Take the rest, go get lessons and work on the lessons.
Yeah.
I think the big misconception is they can take a lesson from Stephen Puryear and tomorrow they're going to shoot 72.
Yeah.
And instead of going out and working on what they've been taught.
Yeah. And, and there's time. You've got the world's best golfers, highly skilled. You give them something to work on. All they want's a nugget. They don't want a lot, just a little something. They'll work on it for hours and hours. You give a 10 handicap golfer something to work on, they want a lot, and they'll only work on it for an hour, 1 hour versus multiple hours, and they say it doesn't work. So it's the amount of time that's being put in, and then you got to take that to the golf course, which is a totally different environment. And that transition could be the first tee, even though the first tee is only about 25 yards from the practice range at Canebrake, it might as well be 25 miles, because that transition from the driving range to number 1 tee is a big transition. And then performance, posting a score, that's a whole nother thing. And then all of a sudden, playing in a tournament is another thing. And then you've got the last one, and I tell them they own it when they can play in the last group, be competitive in the last 9 holes, and have a chance to win. If it's still holding up then they've got a chance. And that's where we've been with Chad Ramey. Chad Ramey's led 4 or 5 times since we started working. PGA National, I think he shot his career best, was leading the golf tournament, shot 64 on a hard golf course. But then Sunday, when the wind came and he was playing with Rory, it wasn't so good anymore. Same guy. 2 days later, different environment. Same thing happened to him at Sedgefield in the Wyndham. He was in the last group playing with Matt Kuchar. When Matt Kuchar waited till Monday if y'all remember that, waited till Monday to finish. But, Chad was in that group and he never got any kind of rhythm and feel, and it kind of was 2 of the worst rounds he's ever shot, which was preceded by 2 of the best rounds he's ever shot. So, that transition, people don't realize how hard it is to create a new habit that will hold up under pressure. And it's funny, you ask amateurs, they spend literally an hour, might go out there for 15 or 20 minutes and go, oh, this doesn't work. And they'll go back to what they were doing.
So you were referencing earlier, Chad's a lot of club rotation and he was hitting it short and crooked. I know that you said that he's picked up some distance. Has the change from the club rotation increased his distance, or are there some other factors that you guys have worked on to give him a little more club head speed and a little more pop on the ball?
Yeah, he was kind of chasing distance with all this ground force reaction stuff. That swing catalyst measures that. And the golf industry is kind of interesting. A gadget will come out or a tool will come out and they'll tell everybody how great it is. But we don't really know what it's doing. I mean, it's like, we can measure ground force. We can measure what the body's doing. Okay, well, what's the body supposed to be doing? What are the world's best players doing? Well, one world's best player, number 1, might be doing it totally opposite to number 2. And they're both great players. So it's taken a little bit of time for the industry and the instructors to figure out how to use these tools. Well, Chad was using a lot of vertical force. So he was horizontal, he was sliding back and then jumping through it. And he was getting hurt doing it. He was creating a little more speed doing it, but his body couldn't handle it. He had some back issues and some wrist issues. So we've created more of a pattern where he's rotating more. It's more of a center pivot, and he's using, if you know Chad Ramey, he's a stocky guy. He's built, more like bull than long and lanky. And he's a real stocky guy with a lot of core strength, and that's what we're trying to take advantage of. So we're turning more, we're torquing more. And with all this technology, we can measure that. It's really fun to watch the progress. And we're trying to get the club to go around his body more rather than going up and down with face rotation. So if he's gotten better at that, that's where that speed's come from. And hitting it center, I mean, gosh, it's nice to hit it in the middle of the club. That's kind of the number one thing for hitting it far is kind of hit it in the middle. And now we're getting a lot more center strikes, whereas he was having some heel and toe strikes because it was so off plane.
That's my there. You just solved my problem, hitting it on the face.
Yeah, I mean and that's a big deal.
It is interesting you brought up the ground force, because when we were talking with Tyler Watts, he said that's what he's been working on. To that, and his distances are amazing. How far he hits it.
Yeah. Well,
there's different ways.
We picked up a new. I didn't realize this, but PGA Tour players, they end up with an entourage, and we call it the team. And back in the day when I was first starting with Lee, it was me and him, Corn Ferry, in a caddy. And usually on Corn Ferry Tour, your caddy's not the greatest guy. He's not. If he was a great caddy, it'd probably be on the PGA Tour. So, there's not a whole lot of input from the caddy on Corn Ferry. So it's just me and him. Well, now we have a putting coach, short game coach, a mental coach, a physio that kind of a personal trainer, but he'll rub him down before, rub him down after, a lot of stuff on the table, to keep him healthy. And then of course Savannah, the wife. So as we're and agents. So at any given moment on our practice round, we can have 8 guys out there. And one of our new guys is Jason Glass. Jason's from Canada, and we picked him up for speed training. And he specializes in the ground. And I've gotten excited again about teaching just because I'm working with him, and he's opened my eyes to so much. But to watch him work with Lee, a lot of times before I could kind of predict what guys were going to work on. Well, he's got Lee jumping up in the air, spinning around, and then landing back square, and then jumping from one side of the gym to the other like a monkey. I mean, they're doing a lot of that kind of stuff, and it's nothing like I'd ever seen before. A lot of band work, but learning to use the ground and force, kind of like a basketball player almost. And that's where some of this new speed's picked up. Yesterday, we lived on the tour this past year. We lived around 172, 173 ball speed. On Mondays and Tuesdays, it might be 168 or 169. Yesterday, he hadn't played in a week. It was cold. And our first swing was 178 ball speed, which it was like, God, where'd that come from? So now all of a sudden he had 180 for the first time when we were in Las Vegas, which it was warmer and hotter. I'm like, okay. But when we got done yesterday, he was right at 179 ball speed, carrying at 320. So, we picked up 7 miles an hour and 20 this year, which has been in the fall. And that's ground force.
Wow.
Wow.
It's been a lot of fun.
Is that this kind of new technology? You're having to learn it along with Lee almost, right?
Yeah, and it's all, you feel like that you're stealing information, like if you were going into somebody's business and they had the door locked because they didn't want any of their trade secrets to go. That's kind of the way it is on the tour. But then when you pick up a guy like Jason and all of a sudden you get to work together with somebody, yeah, it's definitely eye-opening. And there's definitely some sharing of information between the two of us. And when you've only got one or two or three guys out there, it's competitive. You're not sharing a whole lot. Mark Blackburn's been great at sharing information, but it's always kind of in a classroom format. We don't get to do that a lot when we're out there on tour. But yeah, I've definitely picked up some great information. I've had a lot of fun with it. And then with swing cattles, being able to measure it's one thing, but being able to change it is totally different. So, I was looking at it going, okay, I know what's going on, but I'm not real sure how to change the result. Well, Jason has given us that ability to change it. It's been great. And the wild thing is, it's all in the gym.
Yeah.
It's not like he's doing anything on the golf course, and he's leaning on me to get that part done.
He's building a different engine.
Oh,
basically.
gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I told Lee he lost his rear end. Where'd your rear end go? Because he got down. Lee was skinny this summer. I mean, his rear end and his legs were skinny, and he's always been relatively stocky, in his hips and his legs. Shoulders, not so much. But now he's getting all that back because of this new training. It's a lot of fun.
When from a teaching aspect, what's it like to see working with Chad Ramey when you work on something and all of a sudden it clicks? That moment for the player, is it ecstatic? Is it now I get this? What is that feeling like for the player to get it? For you, seeing the guy get what you're teaching?
Don't quit doing that. That's the hardest thing. I tell them it's like paddling a canoe. That Indian that can paddle with his canoe straight down the river, he's got a little right, little left, little right, little left, little right, little left. When me and my daughter, we tried to paddle a canoe, we were in the bushes on the left side, then we were in the bushes on the right side. And, and what these guys do is they experience something like you're talking about, and they'll keep doing that. And the next thing you know, they've overdone it. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, we got it. Now I'm scared of losing it. And to say keep doing what you're doing is tricky. You've got to have a little bit of, okay, let's keep doing that, and we'll see how far we can do that. Then we got to kind of balance it out with something else. But yeah, it's definitely like paddling canoe. And when they get it, I'm like, okay, let's go play. Come on, it's time to go. Go, 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 go. It's peaking at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Because, their A game, Tiger was famous for saying, yeah, I won with my B- game today. And there's so many guys on the PGA Tour that are trying to win with their A game. Well, how many times do you have your A game? You've always got a little something going where you're not comfortable here or there, and you got to learn to win with that B- game or C game. And you get a guy who can do that, they're special. And, that's the hard part. We're trying out there to be perfect, and very rarely are we just perfect. So they got to learn to grind it, and when it is good, golly, ride it, get it going. That's what Ramey's so good at. That surprised me. You look at Ramey's scorecard, he'll have 4 or 5 in a row. Like, God, you get one, all right, like 2, God, 3, 4, 5. Oh, God, we just made 5 birdies in a row. Wow. And he'll ride that thing. And he'll grind his way to some pars. I say that, and he's not playing great in Cabo right now, but I don't think that golf course suits him very well. The wind's blowing and it's wide open. And, it doesn't look like it's this kind of golf course.
Yeah, I always thought really what separated Tiger from a lot of people, other than talent, was his ability to grind a 71 out of when most people are going to shoot 74, 75, shoot 70 or 69. Just, I don't know, willing the ball into the hole, just, not ever giving in.
Yeah. And Tiger knew, especially with majors, he liked to kind of play his way into the lead, and he knew if he could just stay around, give me a good round on Thursday, a little better on Friday. Now I made the cut. Now let me post a good Saturday score and just get me in the hunt on Sunday, and he's got something. That was always his attitude. I've never had a conversation with Tiger. I sure don't want to speak out of school, but the guys who has worked with him in the past have always said, he had this mentality. He knew how to win a golf tournament because he would play his way into that final 9 holes. Where everybody else came out, they posted they were leading on the final 9 hole or the first 9 holes. Now they're stressed. They're nervous as a cat in a dog show. All of a sudden, I got the lead in the U.S. Open. Well, it has barely started yet, and they've got that kind of pressure on him. And Tiger just worked his way in there. And that might be B game, but if he knew that, he could play with a B game that way or C game. But yeah, we were talking, Lee and I were hitting putts yesterday. And with all this new stuff about green reading, you're trying to have the perfect line. And, realistically, there's not necessarily a perfect line. The perfect line matches the perfect speed. And we can control the speed. That's one thing we can really control. We have a hard time controlling how much it's going to break because that's the green. But if we've got a putt, we can straighten it out and make it break less with more speed. Or we can make it break more with less speed. So, that's what Tiger was always so good at. Let's say at Bay Hill, those are the ones that I've seen, or the U.S. Open at Torrey. He had the ability to make that ball go in the hole. And so many guys are trying to hit the perfect line with a perfect speed. But Tiger could match those two up in his mind and really make more putts than anybody I've ever seen when it mattered. And he was literally wheeling it in the hole. And you don't see that much right now because everybody's trying to be perfect. And they forget, hey, I can control that thing.
Yeah. Go back to something you said a minute ago about the A game and the B game. And we've had Lee on and we asked him about the 3M and last year. And from your perspective, tell us what was going on in Stephen Puryear's mind and in his eyes as he watched Lee last year at the 3M.
Well, leading up to the 3M was the British Open. And he had played well in the Scottish Open. And then I went over and worked with him at the British. It was at Liverpool. So it was a really strange golf course, Royal Liverpool. Those bunkers with those straight faces, you didn't want to get in one because if you got in one, it was tough. So whether to lay back or try to strive them or try to through them or whatever was, the trying to figure out that golf course was the hard part. So he had just played well in Scotland. And then we kind of didn't really have a great plan, I don't think, at Liverpool. I'd love to play that one again. So we missed the cut, and I was leaving on Saturday morning. My flight was. So I'm walking out the door, and, when Lee misses the cut, it's like somebody ran over his dog or something, and he's just down, and, you don't know what to say to him. Just, sorry, buddy, we'll get him next time kind of thing, and like, all right, I'll see you. I wasn't going to 3M. So whatever that was after that, I'd see him a few weeks later. Well, he didn't go to 3M until Minneapolis until Monday. So he had an all-day flight on Monday. So he had a lot of short prep for this golf tournament. He was Tuesday, Wednesday, and I did a video from him and said, hey, I figured something out. And he was just getting a little deeper in his backswing. A lot of times in the wind, you'll start short swinging it. So you'll stop turning and you'll try to cover and get a little handle forward and start short swinging it. So he got a little more depth and he could let it go in Minnesota because he didn't have that wind. And I thought, yeah, that's perfect. You figured it out. That's great. Go get him. And then I got a text from Andrew Medley that same day. And Andrew said, we're going to bury him. Making everything, hitting it pure, we're going to bury him. And I said, go get him. So, the next thing you know, we've won it. And the whole time I'm watching, that's one of those things. It's like trying to drive like your child teaching a child to drive a car. I'm pushing the brakes over there and trying to turn in the passenger seat. And that's hard to do. But there's a lot of pacing going on, and I wore a path around my couch just watching that. But it was a thing of beauty. I mean, he really showed off. And the interesting part of that is there's been some side effects because when you win a PGA Tour event by 7 or 8 shots, well, gosh, why can't you win the next one by that many? So your expectations go way up. And unfortunately, that's just golf. That's not the way it is. But as a golfer, it's hard to convince yourself of that. But you'll see a golfer shoot 62 one day and 72 the next. Same golfer. Yeah. And that's kind of what's happened to us this year, is our expectations have been really, really high. And God bless him. That's what you want. You want to expect to be number one in the world. And that's hard. But yeah, that was a great day. That was a good day. We all met at the airport afterwards. One of his sponsors had a plane, and we all met at the airport. It was half of Ardmore, I think, that was there, and all of Canebrake. But for him to get off that plane with that trophy with Savannah was really cool. I mean, that was a great moment, and he handled it really well. You know, one of the things, if you ever get a chance, go watch that interview. I think it's a YouTube video where Nick Saban called him, and he talked to Nick Saban, and that was pretty funny. You know, because
Yeah.
he called Saban his buddy and his pal and all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no,
I've seen it.
well, that's pretty neat. But yeah, that's definitely a career highlight when you can have a PGA Tour win like. I mean,
Yeah. That's probably the most people Pryor Field's ever seen for the landing of a plane.
That's right. That's right.
I think winning on tour, kind of getting out there validates how good you are, but that winning on tour kind of, validates that you really do belong out there, and that you can play with the best in the world.
Yeah. And it goes all the way through the locker room. I mean, just the way people talk to you, the attitudes they have to you, the officials. They know your name, they recognize you. There's a respect there, and you can't really earn that any other way other than being out there a long time and then winning. And it makes it much more comfortable. That first year we were out there, I'll be honest with you, I was deer in headlights. We're warming up next to Scotty or Rory or having lunch with Scotty or Rory. And, that's like, you forget what you're doing and you're worried about what they're doing. And, we're kind of past that now. Those guys are the same as we are. Yeah, there's some that are really, really nice. Some, they're not great. They're kind of high on themselves, but most of them are really, really nice. And it's been a lot of fun, being in that club. I mean, that's definitely a club like you're talking about, where you've got a lot more confidence and you feel like you belong.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know the first USGA event I ever qualified for, and I'm walking out of the pro shop and heading to the range, and there's Trip Keeney. It took a little while to get used to that, but anyway, you've also had through your time on the tour with Lee and with Chad and some others that you work with, you've got to kind of know some other coaches that people know about. You want to talk about some of those relationships a little bit?
Yeah, that's I graduated high school in 1987, and that's when Ledbetter was so hot. Ledbetter kind of changed the whole golf instructor persona and changed our business, where it was kind of a legit deal with all his books and everything. So, when you do go out there, when I was in Las Vegas, I saw Butch Harmon. And Butch is right up there. I don't know Butch. Now, I didn't meet him. But, guys, to see Butch Harmon was kind of cool. He's one of my, in my business, like, there's Butch. That's really neat. But to be able to hang out with Sean Foley and Scott Hamilton, Mark Blackburn, it's really nice. It's validating, it's career-wise. And it's interesting to realize they have the same struggles we do. They'll be in there griping about this or griping about that. At the Masters, they have a little hut for us on the end of the range, and when your player comes out, you can step on the grass and go out to the range, but if he's not out, then you got to stay on the hut. And, so we're all lined up there in rocking chairs and just kind of waiting our turn, and it's humbling. There's a guy in a green jacket there who, if you step on the grass, he'll scold you, and to see Chris Como get in trouble by the Masters guy. He posted a video and got scolded because he wasn't supposed to post videos. So I was like, he's just like any of us, just waiting to get kicked out.
Yeah, that's funny.
But to be able to do that's really, really neat. Sean Foley's one of the most interesting ones. He's had some good ones, Clean Tiger, and he does it just like the rest of us, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So how much did your rates go up after Lee won?
Greg, I've tried to be consistent because I've had kids took gymnastics, and in baseball and I had to pay those guys. So I've kind of got a place in my heart for kids. I'm not real sure what my rate is for a kid right now. I just kind of, I try to be consistent with what I've done in the past with them and don't want to surprise them. So, down at the beach, I charge a little more than I do up here. But most of my people that I work with now are grandfathered. They're people who I've worked with for years. So it's the same thing. I don't want to be that guy. But for a new guy down at the beach, I've got a whole new ledger I can work with there. So they did go up down there.
You mentioned Ledbetter. If you'll just come out with a bunch of swing gadgets, you won't have to work another day of your life.
Right. And I've got all of them in there. One day I need to have a yard sale and get rid of some of this stuff. But if a swing
Have you
gadget
got the
comes
beach
out,
ball or whatever it was?
yeah, I've had just about everything there ever was. So when you start adding zeros to those things, like with TrackMan and Swing Catalyst, and all of a sudden that turns into a whole different hobby. It's rather expensive, but you got to have them.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your place down at the beach. Just going, a lot of people, from up here go down there for vacation and stuff. Just so give us a little in-depth detail about that.
It's kind of interesting because I'm an old club pro. I've had to deal with presidents and committees and members. So my son and I saw this opportunity. We see this business model that's happening in Nashville and Birmingham and Atlanta, and I've had a place down at the beach for years with my family, and I was like, man, this will work perfect down there, so let's do it. So we kind of created a club, and it's private, and I'm trying to get like-minded golfers who are interested in game improvement to join. My idea is I want my members down there to have all the tools that I have here for a golf lesson. So if you come and take a golf lesson and you had video and you had TrackMan, and then you're off for a month, and then I see you again, I want that facility to provide those tools for you every time you hit a golf ball, which is pretty unique. So, very rarely can you walk into a facility and have video and TrackMan running, so you know exactly what that golf ball did and what it looked like every swing. So that's kind of the idea behind it. Now, TrackMan has the simulator stuff, so you can play Pebble Beach and St. Andrews, so it's fun too. But I wanted to create an environment where they felt like they were getting a lesson every time they went in. So it's a 3-base simulator with the new TrackMan that's in the ceiling, and it's really nice. But I'm trying to get the guy who is a part-time. He might live down there half the time and be a member at Camp Creek or Shark's Tooth, but wants to work on his game in a private environment. So that's kind of our niche right there. That area down there around Camp Creek and Shark's Tooth is pretty golf poor. If you're not a member of Camp Creek, Shark's Tooth, Santa Rosa Club, there's nowhere to play golf other than driving all the way to Destin or Panama City. So, if you just wanted to go hit a few golf balls, you got to go all the way to Panama City. So you're talking about several hours. So we're trying to make it more convenient, easy, in a nice, quiet atmosphere that's away from all the craziness that goes on down there during the season.
And is it just Stephen Puryear Golf? What's the name?
The name of it's the Trophy Room. It's trophyroomgolf.com on the internet and Instagram. But you can find it if you look at anything I've got on Instagram. I've done a lot of stuff on Instagram with it. So, it's one of those things that's been tricky, Greg, and we haven't done a lot of advertising because we want to be private, exclusive. We don't want to. We want it to be where you can go in and have a private club experience, but we got to get people to know about it too at the same time. So,
right.
Trying to get it introduced, it's kind of like if you know kind of thing, and we want our members to let everybody know. So, I haven't done a ton of advertising. I want the people who come in there to have a good time and then tell their friend about it and grow it that way.
When you look back at your career, I mean, how satisfying has it been to knowing that you kind of made this your career path, and where do you go from here?
Yeah.
That's a great question. The the more success you have, the more doors you have, more opportunity you have. And, I don't want to be that guy where I've got so many guys that I'm a mediocre teacher because I've got too many guys. So I've had to really think about how to do that. Used to, when I would go out, I would look at people and go, oh, I could help him. I could help him. I could help him. And, I wanted to help everybody. And as I've gotten a little older and more mature, I've like, okay, I need to really focus on my guys. And I'm not sure, what the next one looks like. It's a personality thing. Some guys need a lot of attention and some guys don't need, like, let's say Justin Thomas. Marcus Potter is a dear friend of mine that works with Lee on his putting. Well, he started working with Justin Thomas. Well, Justin Thomas just needs a few, a look and a go, and okay, I'm good. I'll see you later with Marcus. Whereas Lee likes to have some time with Marcus. So it's just matching those up. So it is very satisfying, and I'm not really sure which direction it's going to go in. But if I could have maybe one more, I might do one more and have three out there. But these two right now, we need to get them as good as they can be, and if they get good, then those kind of opportunities will come. But I've learned I can't help everybody. I used to think I could, but just time wise and relationship wise, it's impossible.
That's an interesting point, given that when Lee and Chad are playing in the same events, you mentioned that you'll go play 9, you'll be out there with Lee for 9 on Tuesday, 9 on Wednesday or whatnot, and then you've got to turn around and do the same with Chad or vice versa. Or you'd say, hey, you guys need to play together so I can play, go 9 with you at the same time?
Yeah, that's been hard. You'd think I'd lose weight, but somehow I managed to, to keep my weight on. But yeah, I mean, if one guy goes at 9 and another guy's at 2, that's a long day. But, that's just part of it. As far as practice rounds go, it's worked out where sometimes they play together. But, Chad's got a baby, and they might be up at 5:30 in the morning with that baby, and he might be on the tee at 6:30. Well, Lee might be there at 9. So, the way they handle their schedules can't really depend on me. So, it's typically a situation where I'm texting them, well, hey, what's the plan tomorrow? And I just cross my fingers that it works out. And then, it might be that I watch 5 holes with Lee and then go watch 5 holes with Chad, or warm one of them up and then follow up after the round with the other one. So here lately, I don't know, the golf gods have blessed me because in Jackson, they were behind each other, and they've been in the same wave all fall, which has been great. That's made my life a lot easier. But yeah, you're definitely right. And it can't, I don't want them making their schedule depending on what I'm doing. I try to just to accommodate it, and they understand. They know. It's not like they're selfish and, he's mine, or, and they'll walk up and they'll warm up next to each other a lot of times so I can just go back and forth. But they understand. I'm lucky. I got 2 good guys. I really do.
When you're at home, typically, how much time do you spend with Lee? Like, I think you mentioned yesterday or whatever with Lee. Is it 2 hours, hour and a half, 3 hours, or just whatever Lee says, with you?
You just said it. It could be an hour. I just got a text from him just now. Hey, you coming out? And we'll hit balls. Typically, Lee's not a grinder. He's not staying out there for hours hitting balls. But we'll go out on the golf course and we'll hit a bunch of shots. So just depending on his schedule, and now he's the new owner of Cambridge. So all of a sudden, he's got some demands on him that he didn't have before. So, typically we'll go 1 or 2 hours and then try to do it the next day and just be consistent and not load up a long time. Now, Chad, on the other hand, he'll come over from Fulton, and we'll have a session in the studio here in Decatur, and then drive to Cambridge and get what we did on in the studio and take it to the golf course. And, that could be a 4-hour day. And I don't get many of those with Lee because I've got more access to Lee. But having the indoor studio, we got to move it to Cambridge. Now that Lee owns it, that's our plan. Is to take all this technology and move it to Cambridge. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
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 Are you going to build another building out there for that, or?
Yeah, I mean that's the plan. They've got a lot to do. If they've got to do fairways, greens, tees in the spring, and once they get all that grown in, so we're talking a year probably before we can even start talking about that and having that conversation.
Yeah.
But once they get done with that, then this is definitely on his radar. And the way the industry is now, it's a requirement. I mean, world-class facilities have world-class training facilities. And that's what they're shooting for. So it's almost something that you just got to have.
Any thoughts or considerations to putting in something that incorporates the physical training as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the team concept, Blackburn kind of came out with that a few years ago. He was real big on the team part, and I'm probably pretty slow. I don't like change. I like to kind of keep doing what I'm doing. I hate it when a computer program updates. It drives me crazy. But, I think that's something golf industry-wise, especially with the junior program that we've got at Cambridge, the physio stuff, the mental side. Yeah. I mean, there could be a lot of room for that, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, we appreciate your time, Stephen. It's always nice to catch up with you.
Well,
thank you so much, Stephen. We appreciate it.
Okay.
I want to thank Stephen Puryear for taking time out of his busy schedule to join us on the Cart Barn podcast. Thought he gave some really nice insight into working with a couple of tour pros, Lee Hodges, Chad Ramey, how he got involved in working with tour pros and his swing philosophy. So again, thanks, Stephen, for joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate Stephen for jumping on. Hope to have him on again in the very near future. Stephen has a very nice training facility in Decatur, and if you're looking for a coach, I'd urge you to contact Stephen. This next week, we have Trey Mullinax going to be joining the Cart Barn, and I'm looking forward to getting that episode out there. So thanks again for listening. Join in next week for another episode of the Cart Barn Podcast.